and it's entitled How to Prepare and Hold a Successful Open House. Before we get going, I just need to run through the rules again set by the Division of Real Estate in order for you to get credit, and I apologize to you that have already heard it. Your video must be on, and you must be in front of your camera for the duration of the class. However, if you need a quick break to go to the bathroom or grab a drink, that's okay. Make sure your full name is on display. If it isn't, would you shoot me a message through the chat to tell me what your name is, if indeed you're using someone else's Zoom. You will be given 3 keywords throughout the class, and you will be required to enter those into a Google form along with your other details. And I will send you a link in the chat at the end of the class. If you, for some reason, miss a keyword, reach out to me through the chat or at the end of the class, as they won't be given again. And credit can only be given if these requirements are met. Anyway, enjoy the class, and I'll hand you over to Steve.
Thank you, Leslie Ann. Welcome everybody to this class. Welcome those of you who are visiting with us for the first time. This is a Presidio Raising the Bar class. Let's see if I can just get this machine working. Let's see what we got going on here. Here we go. For those of you who are new to Presidio Raising the Bar, our motto is, wherever our bar is in real estate, we want to be able to raise it a touch, be a little bit better, be a bit more professional, more ethical, more able to serve our clients in a better way. So everything we do, we're trying to raise our bar. We encourage you to join us in doing that, with whichever company you're with. Wherever you are at the moment, see if this class will help you be a little better. I'll just run through these qualifications one more time, in case anybody's just joined us. Display your full name on the screen. These are all rules from the division in order for me to give you credit on these CE classes. Have your video on, and make sure that you're seen and you're engaging, throughout the duration of the class. The Division of Real Estate requires that you are in attendance for the whole class for you to receive your credit hours. Of course, I'll give you 3 key words during this presentation, which you'll need to submit to Leslie Ann, who's the moderator for this class, at the end of the class, and we can log in and bank your credit hours. To help me remember to give you the keywords, this is Merlin. He'll pop up on the screen, and I'll give you the keyword. When he pops up, if for some reason I don't see him and you do, just unmute and say, let's have that keyword. So when we see him, I know I'm going to be giving you the keyword. Today, we'll be talking about how to prepare for a successful open house. I don't know if we've got anybody here who's brand new. We've got any agents brand new? If you have, just say, yeah, I'm brand new. Any brand new folk? I can't see everybody. I can only see like 5 pics. So there's about 20 people on here. We welcome you if you're brand new, and hopefully this will be helpful to you. And if you're a seasoned realtor, and there may be some nuggets you can find that will be helpful in your open houses in the future. I don't necessarily cover everything. I try and cover as much as I can. If there's something I miss, then just unmute and say, hey, what about this? And I'll say, that's a great idea. Because I can't see everybody's visual, you can interrupt me anytime. If you've got a question or a comment, as soon as you start speaking, then your screen will pop up on my screen. So just chime in if you've got something to say. We would love to hear from you. I would like to have this as an engaging and a participating session. Okay, so let's look at open houses. And I would think over the past year, open houses have been much more difficult because of the COVID restrictions and difficulties with working with different clients with different needs, different expectations. So I'm going to cover a lot of things that will be of general use, obviously, depending on where we are with state laws and restrictions will depend on how you tailor the open house to that neighborhood or area or client. The best thing about open houses is it is a great jump start to get your seller in a place where they can get their house shipshape. It's something to work towards, and ultimately, if we can get that house looking really good, then the open house will be successful. We've often, Leslie Ann and I, when we've done open houses, we've tried to have the house ready for the Thursday or the Friday so we can get it on the MLS and then do the open house on the Saturday, so that it's fresh, it's new on the market, and hopefully we can, entice a lot of agents or buyers to come in on that Saturday open house, which will generate some excitement during the day. So we found that to be successful. Saturday seems to be one of the better days to work with. And if you can get it on the MLS sort of on the Thursday or the Friday, and generally speaking, you can have a reasonable attendance, hopefully, on the open house day. This is what we'll cover today. We'll talk about the preparation, and then we'll review what we have to do to set up for an open house. And then we'll talk about the presentation itself. We'll cover the cleanup procedure and the follow-up. And hopefully when we've got through those 5 topics, we might have figured out a little bit more on how we can be better prepared for an open house. The first question is, what is our priority? The first priority we often think will be setting up a date for the open house. So I presume that will be the first thing that we will do. One of the benefits of setting a date early on with your seller is it gives them an opportunity to get their house ready. And depending on what condition their house is, may depend on how long it takes them to get it ready for you to set that date. But ideally, if you're all aiming for the same date, then this can happen. We found within a couple of weeks, usually, a seller can be ready to have an open house. Just an important thought here, and I thought I'd share this with you. Make sure that our priority of having an open house is to sell the property. Our first priority is to our client, the seller. That's where our focus should be. The open house is for selling the property. It shouldn't be focused on us getting leads, even though if we get leads, that's great. But our mindset should be focused on selling this property. That's why we do in the open house. We shouldn't be thinking in our head, I'm doing an open house to get leads, because that will change the way in which we operate. It will change the way in which we perform. And our client needs to know that we're doing this open house to sell their property. That's what we're doing it for. We're putting their house on the market as an exhibition or a display of how good it is, so that we can get a buyer in there to hopefully place a contract, so that we can get that house under contract as quick as possible. So just make sure that that's where our priority is. Sometimes I've seen agents saying, oh yeah, we're doing an open house so I can get leads. But if you do that in your mindset, your open house may not be as successful as it should be. And it would not be good for the client, your client, our clients, to think that we're doing open house solely for our own benefit. Of course, we sometimes can get leads, and that's a great blessing if it comes our way. But our first priority should be to sell that property. And if we do a very successful open house, you'll find that the visitors or the neighbours, whoever comes to that open house, will recognise that you're a good, dedicated agent. And maybe when they want to come to sell, they'll say, hey, let's use Steve because he did a great open house and he'll do a great open house for me. But just remember, our first priority is to our client. Make sure that we are putting them first when we are building these open house platforms. Of course, then, as good as we can do that, we are then showing off our skills in producing a good presentation that will hopefully allow people to be interested in the home. So any questions on just those couple of slides that we talked about? If you've got any questions, just chime in. Otherwise, you'll just be listening to this English voice for too long. It might send you to sleep. Hopefully not. For those of you who don't know me, I've been over here for about 11 years. My wife and I moved over after our two eldest children settled over in America and married and had families. And we thought, well, maybe we need to get across the pond and be with them. So we came over with our youngest daughter. And we had not done real estate in England. This is the first time we did real estate. We started in 2011, and we found it to be a very good business. So let's talk about the preparation first. And we're going to cover a few pieces in this little section. We'll talk about preparing the property, which is really important. A little bit about advertising and marketing. We'll also talk about how we prepare our seller, and we will also look into a few forms and paperwork. We'll discuss what options we have there, and here is Merlin. So our first keyword, if you want to write this down, first keyword will be preparation, P-R-E-P-A-R-A-T-I-O-N. Preparation will be the first keyword in this presentation. So jot that down, because at the end of the class, that'll be the first keyword that you'll put in on the form. Okay, so preparation. All right, let's have a look at this then. First, we'll talk about preparing the property. So stage your home, make it look like a model home. We've all been to a model home, and model homes look great. You wouldn't necessarily be living in a model home because they look that good, but that's how we've got to try and make this home. We've got to make it so appealing that people want to see themselves in the home. First thing is to remove clutter. We all have clutter, and we can't help it because that's just the way life is. We clutter ourselves to one degree or another, and some of our clients have gained clutter over many years, and it's tough to invite them to, slim it out a little. What we've found to be successful is to encourage our seller to have a stager. Sometimes we have a stager come in. They're neutral. Obviously, the seller doesn't know them, and the stager can be a little bit more, I guess, honest or brutal with what they might suggest that the property needs. And what we've done, we found that stagers probably cost a couple of $100. We've said to them, you pay for the stager, you'll find their information very useful. Basically, the stager will just give them ideas of what they could do to tidy up their home. They'll go through each room, and they will say, this is what you need to do with this room, and this is what you need to do with this room, and this is how you can make it look better. Remove personal photographs off the walls and remove your clutter, maybe move some furniture around. And what we've said is you pay for that at the beginning, and we'll credit you at settlement, so it doesn't cost you any money. We'll pay for that, because we know that if someone's going to get, if they want top dollar for their house, they've got to probably do some things in order to make it appealing for top dollar. Now, in saying all of that, there are some people that they've got so much clutter, it's it's like a nightmare. They just can't get their head around it. So you just got to encourage them as best as you can to slim out the clutter. Now, just talking about removing clutter, does anybody have any experiences where they've seen someone transform their home just literally by removing clutter? Anybody had an experience where they've seen a success on this? Must be someone out there. We've got 21 people on this little class.
I've got an opportunity or experience. We were listing a home down in Spanish Fork, and the home was owned by an investor, and the tenants moved out and they just did not leave it in very good shape. So we actually paid to have a junk service come in and throw away everything that was in the home. And then we spent about, $200 or $300 just purchasing a few small items to have in the home. I mean, I know it sounds weird. It went from a hoarder home, almost kind of like a meth house home, into kind of it was vacant, but it was semi-staged, and that home sold in one weekend. Yeah.
Perfect. You know, if you've not done that, you'd probably be sitting with that home for a long time. I know we had a home, super nice couple, and they did have quite a bit of clutter, and they did work hard on the clutter. But there was one blue wall. It was kind of like a dark bluish wall in the sort of living room. Believe it or not, the doors and the door frames were all black, all painted black. So they got this one blue wall. It was not quite navy, but it was between a royal and a navy blue, quite dark blue. So I said, how about painting that blue wall a lighter color? I said, we really like the blue wall. I said, yeah, but you're going to sell the home, aren't you? So you're not going to have the blue wall. So we could paint the wall a lighter color. Even if it's a lighter blue, it will make this room look a lot brighter and a lot bigger and more attractive. And the guy says, no, we don't really want to paint the blue wall. So we tried to sell that house. And every time we followed up with people, they would say, we don't like the blue wall. So we eventually was able to go to the client and say, you know, we get a lot of people who just say they don't like the blue wall. Well, I eventually painted the blue wall, and then the property sold fairly quickly. So just the same as Tyler's experience, when you just make a little adjustment, it can make a huge difference to prospective buyers. But clutter is one of the biggest things, because if people walk into a house and they see clutter, they see the clutter before they see the house. And they cannot imagine themselves in the house when they're looking at the clutter. So clutter is one of the biggest things we need to work with when we're working with our clients, but it can be a little bit sensitive. And so you can either use let's get a stager in to help them, or you can just work with them. And if they don't remove it, you just got to keep working with the client, help and say, look, we need to get this clutter moved in order for us to, you know, get a serious buyer in.
Could I just say something?
Yes, please. Thank you.
I think early on, you need to establish where your clients are in terms of what they're willing to do. Some clients will do anything to get their house ready. And I think it's also important to say to our clients, rarely do you ever see someone that's about to sell their home that can sell it as it is, because we all live in our homes. And that's the one thing about a model home. It's not, no one lives in it. And so it's created to look like a blank canvas, but not so blank that people don't fall in love with it. But we have to create an atmosphere in our homes where someone can come in and think, I could see us living here. And if we have too much, whether it's too much furniture, clutter, or personal items, people cannot vision themselves living in that home. And I think some of our clients accept that early on and are willing to do whatever it takes. Others, you have to work with them over a period of time. And it takes, as Steve has said, feedback from potential buyers telling them, it's this or it's that, for them to think, okay, we do need to do stuff or do more things in order to get our house listed. And it's a tough job because we don't want to offend. And as we all know, some clients are more easily offended than others. So we just have to work with them and express to them, you need to find a buyer that can love your house as you do, but they're not going to fall in love with it if it has too much of you and other things in it. I think when you explain that, and I don't know if Steve's going to cover this, but another thing is people, they have to move all their stuff out of their house prior to closing. So why not do some of it in a bid to get a top dollar by either throwing or putting in a pod or in a storage unit or packing stuff up and putting it neatly in the garage or the basement. So I think sometimes it is a lot of the time the way we present it. But anyway, they're just a few thoughts.
I
Can
I actually mentioned, oh, look, all of us.
No, go ahead.
Yes.
You're fine, Lacey.
Lacey, you go ahead.
Let me
and
go
then we'll
first.
take Brandon.
I was going to say, so going along with like the personal pictures, I would also recommend any religious paraphernalia or any kind of, like you said, like you mentioned, Leslie Ann, anything that's kind of could be offensive to anybody else. I just had one of my fellow agents went into a house and there was Nazi paraphernalia. I would say to remove those before showing the house. So that was just my 2 cents real quick.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing, Lacey Ann. And was it Brandon? Who was it next who wanted to speak?
It was me. I'll be quick. One of the things that I do when I sit down with someone right away is I have them walk me through their home. And before we do anything else, listing, presentation, anything, have them walk me through their home, tell me everything that they love about their home. And then I sit down with them and I say, look, this home is very emotional to you. You've had your kids grow up here. You've had whatever things that they've told me as they've gone through that discussion, as we've walked through. And I say, those attachments can't go with someone else. They aren't going to see the memories that you have in this home. So right now, you need to detach yourself emotionally from this home. And we need to start looking at as we're walking through this home, how would someone else see it? Not your memories, not your experiences, but how does someone else see it? So that blue wall that you love, and I actually had someone with a purple bedroom, master bedroom, the purple bedroom that you love, and they had their reasons behind it. We need to paint this white. And they would say, well, but we like it. And I said, yeah, but it's emotional to you, not to someone else. And if you want to have top dollar, and if you want to sell this quickly, then you need to make these, this is why you're hiring a professional to let you know what you need to do. And the other thing I'll tell people right away is, I know you have a bunch of stuff here, 80% of it needs to go right away. And they'll be like, what? And yep, 80% of it needs to go into a storage shed right away. And you need to take the basically six weeks worth of clothes or whatever, 6 weeks worth of items that you want to use. And that's our goal, is to have this sold within that amount of time. Look at it as, yeah, you're still moving a lot of personal effects out of your home, but that's going to help you sell this home faster and get you prepared for the new place. I really don't have a lot of problems. So
yeah, absolutely. Crack on, that was. And as has been mentioned, they're going to move all this stuff out of the house anyway. It's all going to go, so they might as well start early on and give it a little bit more room to work with. Very good. Yes, I like the note of they can't take the emotions with them, the emotions of the family that live there. They're going to stay with that family. So yes, deep clean. Not everybody can do a deep clean. Not everybody knows what a deep clean is. That's the other challenge we have sometimes. But the house does need to be clean. Even if the house doesn't have very much furniture in or very much attractive selling features or qualities, if it's clean, then it is already attractive to a potential purchaser. It's got to be clean. I've been in some houses and I think to myself, how do they live like this? I mean, you can't even walk across the carpet without walking on things that have just been there for a long time. It's got to be clean. So if we can get these houses clean and free of clutter, that's going to make a huge difference. Let's move. Anybody got any thoughts on or any stories on deep cleans?
I think we always have to go back to the point that probably more than 95% of sellers want top dollar, and that the only way to get top dollar is to do certain things. And I think I said earlier, I remind people, there's no way when we sold our house last year that we could have just decided one day to sell it and then list it the next day. It took effort, and I don't feel like we had a terribly cluttered house, but we did have a lot of personal photos on our wall, and other things that were personal to us that would not be appropriate to a possible buyer. So I think even the cleanest, tidiest of people, most people's homes are not ready to list because, like I said, because model homes are not lived in. And when you live in a home, it becomes part of you. And as Brandon said, there's emotion and there's things that are connected solely to you that will not go with your home. And so, and I think it also depends how long someone has lived in their home. As Brandon said, some people have lived there years and they had their children there and had their children grow up. And it's a very emotional thing for them. And we need to be sensitive, but always bring them back to those emotions, those memories are yours, and you will take them with you. They won't stay in the house.
Very good, thank you. And we remind our client that this is a business transaction. You know, this is a business deal. We're getting your house ready to sell. It's going to be your biggest, usually the biggest transaction you'll do, selling a property for several $100,000. And this is a business deal. And that's why we're going to make this house ready to sell. Talked a little bit about this, but often you can have, particularly for folk that have been there a long time, just a lot of junk that's outside. We have a neighbor and he's been there for 35 years and he's got 35 years of stuff. And if he sold the house, I don't know how he would be able to handle getting rid of all of that stuff. Because it's not just small stuff, it's big stuff. But when we've got a lot of junk outside, we've got to try and handle that because it has to go eventually. So it might as well go early on. Another one is, this is a simple one, but clean rain gutters make a huge difference on a house. You know, sometimes those rain gutters can get cluttered with, you know, leaves and then even, believe it or not, soil up there where, because a lot of water up there and it's stagnant, you'll have weeds growing out of the gutter. You need to get them clean. They need to be absolutely clean. So that's another thing that can easily be done. It's not too difficult to get those clean. A home wash is good. The stone work and the siding of the house, often over many years, it's gathered a lot of debris or dirt, or and if you give it a good hard wash with a jet wash, that can make a huge difference as well. And here's another one. The front door is the most important part of the house when they first get there, and sometimes you can make that look quite attractive. Painting the door, having a nice new welcoming mat, even a flower basket, or even sometimes putting new house numbers on the front of the house will make a difference. What we're trying to do is clean up the property so that it looks good. And then, of course, things like, you know, your inside closets and drawers, let's keep it clean and neat and tidy. Anybody got any thoughts on any of those items they'd like to share? Any stories or any comments related to those bullet points? No? Okay.
Sorry, can you hear
Thank
me?
you, Vanessa. Yes, perfect.
Yeah, so I used to stage before I became a real estate agent, and I cannot say it enough times, less is more, and the first impression is everything. I've done houses where I just went through and removed all the extra hangers in the laundry room, and have them take those out and put all of their laundry soap in baskets, just simple things like that. Or maybe getting some fresh bedding for beds. And it just, when people aren't focused on all the negative things, like, oh, it's dirty, there's clutter, this and that, they can picture themselves in the house that much easier. And if you go into a house and you're like, okay, well, that's broken, look at that big hole in the wall, or this looks dirty, it makes you start to think, okay, how well did they really take care of their home? Versus when you can go in and picture yourself in there, you're way more likely to sell a house. I mean, in this market, you can sell just about anything, but when the market's not crazy like this, having a house look top notch and clutter free goes a long way.
Very good, Vanessa. Thanks for sharing. You are right. At the moment, houses are selling quickly, but they won't always be selling quickly. This business swings both ways, and as soon as it becomes a buyer's market, then you've really got to make those houses look good because they've got choice. But at the moment, it is a seller's market, and sometimes people are not doing open houses because the house is sold before they've even got to the date to do the open house. But we as realtors still need to know how to prepare a property. Vanessa, you're absolutely right. When people go into a house, the first thing they remember is the bad stuff. They remember the broken window. They remember the drawer that doesn't open properly. They remember the clutter that they saw, and that's the impression that they go home with. And the other houses, if they've not got that, will have an advantage over a house that has not been tidied up. Good. Let's look at a few other things on preparation of the property. Did I cover this one? Let's see. I think I've just gone through this slide. It just reversed on me. This next one should come up. Okay, here's a good one. So make all necessary repairs. The repairs have got to be done anyway. I had a client, and downstairs in the basement, there was a broken window. It wasn't broken all the way through. It was kind of obviously it had got a breakage in it, and it came down sort of a third of the window. The glass was still in there, but it was broken glass in a window. And I said to him, we ought to get that fixed. He says, oh, it was like it when we moved in the property. So he was in the property for a number of years and he not fixed this broken window. And I said, well, we've got to fix it anyway. Let's just fix it. He said, I'll fix it when we've sold it. I said, okay. I said, well, it'd be really good if when they go down to the basement, they can see that window's not broken. But he wouldn't fix it. And after we got the feedback and people say, what about the broken window? That's what they were thinking about. They were always thinking about this glass that was broken in the basement. Eventually, he did fix the window and we were able to have the house sold in a reasonable time. But the broken glass window was a problem. So if we've got repairs, or we've got a door that doesn't shut properly, or we've got a window that doesn't open properly, or whatever the repair is, let's see if we can get those done before we show the home.
I think
Anybody have any comments on?
I think following on or adding to what Vanessa said, that there's a lot of astute buyers, and what they will think of, if they haven't repaired the things I can see, what is there behind the scenes that hasn't been repaired? And I think what a buyer sees, if everything is in good working order and there's no obvious repairs, a buyer is going to have the confidence that you probably looked after the things behind the scenes, like the furnace and just upkeep of a property. Whereas if they see lots of things broken, to a lot of buyers, that's going to be a red flag that this home has not been cared for.
Yeah, and they're probably going to get less for that home because the buyer will want a credit to repair those items and will probably want more than the seller is willing to budget for. Make sure the basement's clean and tidy, real important. And I know it's difficult when you are moving because you've got to put those boxes somewhere. You're either going to go in the basement or in the garage. But wherever they're going, let's see if we can still make as much room as possible in those storage areas that still looks clean and tidy. Tidy is important. There may be times where we need to rearrange furniture to make the rooms appear bigger. So that's something else that we should consider. This is one that does work sometimes, if you're careful with it, you know, with air neutralizers or even, you know, sort of aromatherapy scent things, but it shouldn't be overdone. If you're going to do that, it should be very soft and in the background, but sometimes that can be helpful. Certainly if there are some smells that need to be dealt with. This has already been mentioned. I think Vanessa mentioned this. Bedroom covers, let's make sure they're clean, and also a neutral cover. That's really important. And let's make sure that all of the surfaces, from the baseboards to the ceiling fans, windows, mirrors, and floors, are clean and shiny. That's what people are going to buy. They're going to buy that crisp, clean, open look. Any thoughts on any of those pointers on that slide that anybody would like to share? Any success stories or any stories that were not successful?
What's the best thing that people have found to combat odors? Like particularly sometimes an older person has lived in a home for a long time. What have they found that's the best thing to use that doesn't cost a fortune?
That's a great question. I'm glad you raised that. Does anybody have any experience on that before I give you my thought, which probably won't be very good? Someone here is bound to have a good response to that question. What would be the best way of dealing with a property that maybe has that sort of old musty smell that may have come over, you know, the last 40, 50 years of someone living there?
Clean the carpets, paint the walls. But and I haven't done this yet, but I've heard other agents that have done this where there's the scent that you could put into the paint of the walls. I'm curious if anybody's actually used that on here and if they've had good outcomes with that.
Wow.
Has anybody used any of the paint scent? I haven't, but I have heard that is quite good. You can get the paint that's kill all. That's not a scent paint, but it will actually kill. It'll kill floor or wood or walls that have been, I guess, contaminated with like a cat smell or a type of a pet smell, and that's very good. We've used that before, the kill all paint, but I haven't used the scented paint. Anybody on this feed have any experience on paints?
So I have not used paint, but what I've had people do, one in particular, was they had cat urine smell in the house. It was really bad. Luckily, it was not in the carpet or the floor. It was just that they had so much. They had like 3 cats, and the litter box was near the air intake, and so it would blow it through the entire home. So First of all, we told them they have to take the cats out. And then what we did is we went to Diamond Rentals and got an ozone machine. They had to be out of the house for like 2 days, and went back in there and there was absolutely 0 smell in the home.
Oh,
so that's
very good, because cat is hard to get rid of.
So what was that called, Braden? Ozone machine?
Yeah, it was an ozone machine, and I think we got it from Diamond Rental. This has been like 2 years ago, but I want to say it was like $100 or something, maybe $200 for a couple of days. It was not bad, and it totally made a difference because there was no way we were going to get that home sold as it smelled.
So it basically replaced all the air that was attached to the furniture and the wall and the carpet.
It literally just changes the O2 to O3 and electrifies the air. That's why no one can be in there. Like living things cannot be in the home when it's being done.
Right.
Oh, and change your air filters.
So Jacob said in the chat, Kilts is a sealer that gets rid of most remaining scents. Does a great job when you swap carpet also. Clean dust and staples out, and then use Kilts paint and subfloor prior to installing new carpet. That's right. If you've had an animal urinate on carpet and it's gone through to the wood and you just put new carpet over it, you're gonna still eventually have the problem again.
Yeah.
So
Definitely
you
got to see it off.
yeah. Thanks, Jacob.
Very good. Yeah, just send it. If you send a chat in, Leslie Ann will pick that up for me because I don't read the chat while I'm doing this. Good. Any other thoughts on any of those items on that slide? All right. Oh yes, there's this one as well. I think I did cover this slightly earlier, but if you can get a jet water spray, it's really good for cleaning, you know, your garage, your outbuildings, your sheds, and your pathways. It'll get in all the crevices and really give it a good clean. That's always a good thing to do if you can. All right, let's see some of these other points here. Okay, this is usually a big one. Cut the lawn and pull the weeds, trim the flower beds and tidy the vegetable patches. Certainly if the family's had animals, this can be a challenge because the lawn can be pretty tidy if it's had, you know, some heavy dog on there. And certainly in some parts, well, I think all parts of Utah actually, because I come from England, but for some reason, over here in Utah, it's the hardest thing to grow grass, but the weeds come up on their own. They don't need any water, they don't need any soil, they just appear through the rocks or through the dust. I call it dust over here, the mountain dust. So those weeds, they just keep coming and you've got to get rid of them, particularly those dandelions. But if you can make the outside look pretty trim with the house, make sure the lawn is cut and those weeds are out, trim out your beds and your vegetable patches, you're going to have a chance of someone thinking, yeah, this is a nice home. I remember trying to sell a home, I've got a feeling it was out in West Jordan, and I'm not kidding you, I went to their backyard, which obviously one day was grass. There was still a bit of grass there, but there were dog poops all over it, and there was hundreds of them. I don't know how they lived not cleaning it up, but it was everywhere. There was hundreds and hundreds of them, and I had to say to them, you've got to get this cleaned up. But I could see it was going to be a mammoth task. I mean, it would take you all day, just a mammoth task. But sometimes we've got to have that conversation with our clients in order to sell the property, because there's no way when someone looks at it, they think they've got to do it, and it's not attractive.
So can
I
I add one
with,
thing to that too?
yes.
So I have Labradors. I actually breed Labradors as well. And a great kind of thing you can do is you can go and just get a cheap shop vac and use that to get up any of the poops out there. You know, it just thud, 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 and then just dump it in the trash. It's so much quicker.
So just say that again.
So go to like Home Depot, Lowe's, you get a shop vac.
Oh, a shop vac.
Yes.
So you kind of you're vacuuming them up.
Yep. Because it's got that wider nozzle that's on there. It's just quick, easy. They don't have to worry about spending all that time cleaning it up. But it's, yeah, like you said, it's a big difference.
It is a huge. I have to remember that. That's a good idea. Great suggestion, Lacey.
We just have one dog and he does enough, but we're pretty good. Well, no, I won't say we, Steve picks them up, but when it snowed, it is harder, but you have to keep on it. It has to be something that you think that's something we do every day. Yeah.
You know, plus the fact if they have got animals, often there are other things in the backyard that might need attention. You know, things that may have been chewed, or you know, holes that may have been dug. Those things have got to be attended to, because the outside is important just as much as the inside. Let's see then. So let's see if we can see. Oh yeah, clean windows inside and outside. That makes a huge difference. I mean, this is like night and day. If you can get them to have the windows clean, inside and outside, it is worth paying a window cleaner to do it. Because often the seller, if they've not done it for a long time, they obviously haven't got the right kit or whatever. And, you know, they can probably just for a few $100s get someone to do the whole house inside and outside. But it will make a huge difference to the way in which that house looks from the outside and looking from the inside to the outside. Anybody got any thoughts or stories on window cleaning? Okay, windows are important. Make them clean. Here's another one. Check the roofing tiles and the pipe fittings. Now, they may not be able to get that done before an open house or before, but if they know there are some issues on top of the roof, then the agent can share that with potential buyers and say, yeah, we're aware there's a couple of pipe fittings up there. We're going to have those replaced. You know, and there's a few tiles on the side there that are starting to curl in. We're going to get that bit fixed. If you can tell your potential buyer that you are already aware of certain bigger things that you can't do quickly, but you are going to get them done, that puts them at ease. It's like it takes it out of their brain and they don't think about it anymore. Whereas if you don't say anything and they say, oh, I can see the, you know, the rubber boot around that pipe up there is gone. If the buyer is raising these items to the seller, then they're more of an issue than if the seller can raise them with the buyer. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. Let's see what else we've got here. Okay, this is a big one. Repair your fences, your gates, and your pathways. There are so many fences out there that I've seen that they don't open and shut properly. And that's a problem because you've got to take your buyer, if you're a buyer's agent, you're usually walking around the back, opening up gates and looking at fences, walking on pathways, and they've got to work. They've got to look clean and tidy. Here's another important one. Obviously, this is more difficult to check in the winter because obviously everything's shut down, but we need to make sure that the irrigation is working correctly. And if we are showing our house during the winter, we need to be able to tell the buyers that it was winterized correctly and, you know, here are the instructions or whatever it may be, but all the pipes are working. Irrigation is important. Touch-up paint, here's another big one, particularly where you've got, you know, a door or door frame, you know, where the sun has just peeled away paint. It's not a big deal to clean this up. Sand it down, get it painted, but it makes a huge difference. When people are walking into the side door to the garage and they see all the paint peeling away, it's not attractive, and that's what they remember. So let's see if we can get that tidied up as well. Anybody got any thoughts or comments on any of those items on that slide they'd like to share?
So
I don't
thing
have one.
Oh, go ahead, Vanessa.
Oh, thank you. So in regards to kind of like the whole preparing the property, and another training, I had heard something that had really stood out to me. When you're walking your client's house, if they bring up, oh, you know, we meant to do this, or we've been meaning to do that, or we never got around to this, bringing it back around to them and saying, hey, you know, either that's something we should fix if it's something that could be done before it hits open house, or make them aware that's maybe something that we might need to have a contingency on. Hey, we're going to give this much money for the roof because it hasn't been fixed yet. You know, just making them aware if it's something that's not going to be taken care of, that's something that they might financially need to take care of on the other end. And if you also see something as well, bringing it up to them. And, you know, you can also ask them, is there anything you've been meaning to do or anything you've wanted to change or fix as well? So then it kind of puts it in their lap versus you saying, oh, well, you need to fix this and this and this and this and this. And then they're like, oh, wow, that's, you know, you don't want to overwhelm them, but maybe they know that there's some things that need to be fixed. So
yeah, very
hope that
good point. Kind of puts the ball in their court, puts them in the driving seat. What I have usually done is, before we've ever done an open house, I've always walked the property with the client, says, and we'll ask questions, you know, what about this? Have you thought about this? And usually you can get a feeling of how much they are willing to do, which is what we're really talking about. Brandon, did you have a comment you wanted to share with us?
Oh, we're good. We can move forward. I said I will joke with people that, hey, we're going to walk through this, and by the time you get finished doing the little fix-ups that we need, you're probably not going to want to move. And I'll just say that ahead of time, because sometimes they'll take the approach like, oh my goodness, this is going to cost me thousands of dollars. But
Right.
I'll approach it with them saying it kind of in jest, to the fact that, but you want to make sure that this is a home that you want, that someone else is going to want to move into. And so we're going to pick and choose the things that are the most crucial items. And everyone has to understand that a home has wear and tear, but those items that aren't just wear and tear, we're going to need to take care of ahead of time, because it'll come up either through them or through the inspection. And let's just address them right off the bat. And you know, the goal is that you'll make up the money that you're putting into it when you sell the property.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. And when we've had a stager going, and the stager comes up with a whole load of items, Vanessa will know this, it's a whole load of list of things to do. I've always said, look, pick off the ones you can do. Let's do the ones you can do. The ones we can't do, then we can't do them. But let's see what we can do, because that will make a difference, a huge
Hey,
difference.
Steve, can I say two
Yes.
things about that?
Thank you.
So I've actually gone over and helped wash windows and swept front porches and washed doors and whatever else I can do to help. I don't know if, I know that's not an expectation. Do other agents do that too, where they go help their clients get their houses ready to sell?
Anybody like to comment on that?
I do.
So Lacey Andrews, I can't see your name when you ask the question. It doesn't show on my screen. What's your name?
Me?
You just asked that question. Yeah.
Oh, Minette.
Minette. Okay.
Minette. Minette.
I only see half of your photograph on my screen.
Oh, really?
So I don't know why it is.
sorry.
It's just the way it works, I think. I now know who you are, Minette. Yes, I know who you are.
And then the second thing is, like, fresh flowers or plants really do make an area look so much better. And so I've gone to Costco and just, it's not that expensive to buy a couple of bouquets of flowers, just to have them either in the master bedroom, in the kitchen, in the family room, just to kind of liven up the place. Are there any other ideas that people can give that would help too?
Okay, well, we'll cover a little bit more of that as we go on. If anybody has any ideas, then just unmute. Okay, let's see what else we got then. Still on preparation of the property. Here's another one. Outbuildings, make sure they're open. I remember going to one property, and it was quite a trek out actually. And we got there, and there was a couple of very nice outbuildings, but there were no keys there. We got into the house. I called the seller's agent. Said, "Oh, yeah, I'm not sure where the keys are to that." But this was a big barn. I mean, it was big and it was nice, but we couldn't even get inside there. So I wasn't able to show my buyer the outbuilding, and that was a problem because it was a bit of a drive out there, and they couldn't even see it. So we've got to make sure that if there are any outbuildings, however old or decrepit they may look, let's make sure we can get into them. Another thing is sometimes there's wasteland, it's got a gate on it and you can't get through the gate. We've had that experience as well when we've been looking at land and we can't get actually on the land unless we, you know, climb over the gate. But make sure it's accessible. Another thing when we're preparing the property, if there are people that are going to be there to help us join the open house, we should have a chat with them beforehand to see what they can and can't do. Now, there are certain people we can have helpers who can do certain things and they can't do other things. So let's have some thoughts on that. What sort of helpers can we have at the open house? And what can they do and what can they not do? Let's have some thoughts on that. Has anybody had people help them, have someone help them on an open house, but they're limited to what they can do? Or can we have anybody turn up and they can do everything that we're doing?
You have to be an agent to be able to represent the property and answer questions about the property, and most importantly, to write any contract on the property. Other than that, I mean, they can help with cookies and scraping the lawn, or, you know, like scraping the walk or anything like that.
Yeah, and they can also take notes. They can be like a secretarial platform, but they certainly can't talk about any platforms of negotiation or selling the property. They don't represent the seller. They would be working for you or helping you. So just be aware of that. Part of the preparation of the property is preparing any help that you may have there if you needed help. Obviously, they could walk around, they could take someone outside to an outbuilding and open that up on your behalf. That'd be fine to have the keys to that. Or they could be sitting in a room, and if it's a big house and you wanted a couple of people just watching, that's fine too. But they can't engage in negotiation. So good. Let's move on to this next topic, which is advertising and marketing. This covers quite a few different areas. So what we're trying to do, we're trying to get people through that door. And in order to do that, we've got to advertise and market the property, because otherwise we're not going to get people through that front door. So here's one. There's probably other bits and pieces that go with this as well, but posting online, obviously MLS is very important. That's where we've got to start, but there are other places that we can lock into or approach. I'm not suggesting these are the best or the worst places. I'm just putting up what generally people think of doing. But I would like you to be involved in sharing your experience in posting on some of the internet sites that are available. Obviously, MLS, we all should be posting on there, and we really can't do an open house that is on the MLS. That's one of the rules. But talk to me about posting online. What have you found successful? What have you found maybe not as successful? Anybody? Well, let's start with Facebook. Who's used Facebook for marketing property? Has anybody used Facebook for marketing property?
I always post
Stacey Ann, you're in.
I always post on all of the yard sale sites as well, just, you know, to get out to actually a lot of different, not just the area that the house is located in. So say West Jordan, I'm not just going to post on the West Jordan Facebook yard sale sites. I'm going to post on a lot of different areas, because those might be people looking to move into that specific area. So yeah, I'll always share. I do a lot from my real estate Facebook page and then share onto the yard sale site. So that way it takes them back to my page too, so they can see all the information of whatever house that I'm posting.
I know, have you had any notable success where someone has said, oh yeah, I saw you on, you know, this yard sale Facebook page? Have you had anybody respond to you that way?
Sorry, I'd muted myself. Probably not specifically at an open house. I've had people then comment and ask me about either selling or buying based off of what I was doing for somebody else.
Okay, very good. Good, okay, well that's, you know, I think it does work. It's not a case of this works and the others don't work. It's doing a bit of everything tends to give you some exposure, and hopefully something will work. I think Zillow has got a lot better in the recent years. It used to be very poor as far as their information on there. And I think still they have a lot of outdated information, but there are a lot of buyers that go to Zillow. So maybe that's a good reason to be on there, because people not in the industry think, oh, I go to Zillow to find my house, even though they go there and they find a lot of the houses are either sold or, you know, not even on the market anymore. The same with Trulia, maybe with the realtor as well. And then of course you've got your own websites or your blogs or whatever. Anybody else got any experience that I'd like to share or stories on online posting for particularly an open house? No other thoughts on that? Well, if one comes, then just unmute and chime in. Let's talk about this one. This is, we've done this. I'm not suggesting it's the best thing to do or it's successful, but we have done it. Where you have like an open house flyer and you do the door-to-door around the neighborhood to try and expose some interest of people coming into the open house. Anybody have any success with flyers around the neighborhood, door-to-door flyers?
We've done that with my team, Hive Collective. We've gone out and posted around in different neighborhoods, especially if it's a really large home or you know, like a 700,000 and up home. A lot of people want to come through, see what's going on. We actually post on our flyers, hey, come half an hour early for a neighborhood sneak peek. And so if the open house starts at 10, we'll invite all the neighbors in, because you know they're going to come anyway. You might as well get them out of the way early.
Right.
And they may or may not be buyers. We've had a few people bring in, we market it as a choose your neighbor kind of thing. Like you're able to pick the person that's going to be living in the house, maybe potentially. And in that case, you know, those do turn into good leads. But at the same time, like I don't see a lot of leads coming out of that opportunity. I just like to group them together so they all come at the same time, answer all the same questions and get them out of the way so that other real buyers might come through the home when the open house starts.
That's a good idea with the pre-viewing for the neighborhood. I like that idea. Yeah, and this is just kind of raising awareness that, you know, the house is on the market and ready to go. And even some of the neighbors who are not interested in the home may know someone who might be interested in the home. So great idea there. Thanks for sharing, Tyler. Here's another one. I know this has been very difficult over the past year, probably not much as this has happened, but knocking the doors in a neighborhood is something that has been done before. Where you've just done a close neighborhood around, you've knocked the doors and said, hey, we've got an open house with you know, the Smiths. I don't know if you know them at all, but we'd like to invite you to come and visit us on Saturday. I think certainly if it was a buyer's market, that might be something we would do. Sorry, yeah, that's right, a buyer's market.
I think also if you live in a nice neighborhood, that sometimes the neighbors may know someone that would be interested in moving into that neighborhood. So that's another point of kind of maybe chatting to the neighbors.
And the other thing about knocking doors is you're also getting your name out there. You know, people get to know you, and they may not be thinking of having either selling or buying a home, but if they know you, then down the track as things change in their lives, they may think, oh, you know, there's Anne pop round, maybe I'll give her a call. She seemed quite nice. So, you know, that it's a good way of connecting to the neighborhood. Definitely need your specification sheet for your open house. It might be good to have that on your iPad or your phone as well, but to have a hard copy is a good thing to give people who are interested in the home. It's got all the specifications on there. Just make sure you give them the client one rather than the agent one. Of course, you want business cards, and you know, you'll have those in the home and have them on you so you can connect with the people. I haven't done this. I know agents that have done it and have had some success on it. where they've created a video to share online, where they've interviewed neighbours about the area. Has anybody on this class had that experience where they've created a video and circulated that? Nobody done videos? Okay, well, I'm told that they can be quite successful. Obviously, your seller will have to be happy with that and select a few local neighbours, and they will probably talk about the area, the community, you know, the walks, biking, whatever's going along in that area, the clubhouse, and that can be good to share. When people come into the open house, you could have that video running somewhere so that they could get a feel of what the neighbourhood is like with people's thoughts on a video. Okay, any other thoughts on that screen? Okay, let's move on then. We'll go to prepare the seller. This is really important because if we can prepare the seller carefully for an open house, we'll most likely get a better experience, and so will the seller. I think the seller is usually interested in what we're going to say. She or he will pay attention to us. We are supposed to be the professionals in this industry. So let's think about what we're going to talk to them about. I'd first of all say be sensitive to your seller. It's not a good idea to force them into having an open house, but we should talk about it. They need to be comfortable. Let's look at some of the objections that they may have about an open house. Anybody got an idea of why a seller would not want to have an open house?
Afraid of COVID?
Yeah, that's definitely one these days. Yep. Thank you, John. I'll put down some thoughts here and we can discuss these and see if we can come up with any others. Sometimes they don't want people to see their home because they know they can't remove the junk. It's just too much to move. And they're probably a bit embarrassed, and this is a challenge for them. And they have a challenge with that. Another one, they could be just worried about nosy neighbours. Some of the neighbours they may not like, and they don't want them coming into their home. And another one is concerned about security. And as John mentioned, topically this past year, it's been the COVID that people have been worried about. How do you think we get over those objections? Or how have we got over those objections over the past year? Any thoughts? And it's okay if you guys have already said something to say something else. There are people out there thinking of saying something. They just haven't got the confidence to pipe up yet. But I might squeeze them out of the game in a minute. Anybody who's not said anything like to say something on this? How do we cope with objections to having an open house? We've got to try and get this lady here who's listening to us real careful. We've got to get her smiling, haven't we? We've got to get her saying, yes, I'll do the open house. So here, this is how I would approach it. If it was the junk problem, I'd say, hey, we've got to move the junk out anyway, haven't we? We've got to move it out. If we're going to sell the house, it's all going to go sooner or later. And let's say, for instance, they can't afford a pod or they can't move it anywhere, then maybe I'd say, well, do we have one of the rooms that we can just put it all in? Maybe there's a spare bedroom, we just put it all in there, or maybe we put it in the corner in the garage or in the basement, but we just move it, okay? And, maybe we can get some help to help you move it. But it's got to be removed anyway. So we can get over that objection by saying we've got to remove it anyway. Worried about nosy neighbours? Yeah, that can be a challenge. Particularly if you've got some neighbours who maybe have fallen out with and you don't really want them coming into your home. But then you've got to remind them that this is a business transaction and we're after a buyer. And those nosy neighbours may know someone that we don't know who might be interested in your home. Security is a problem. This is their home and they don't want people walking around and taking things out with them. And we have to assure them that we will do everything we can to protect that home. And as realtors, we do have a little bit of security from the board of realtors that we can address that if there was something that went wrong. There is an insurance part that we can draw on if we needed to. I've never done that, but I understand there is. So we do need to talk to the seller carefully and try and get them happy. Explain to them what the purpose of an open house is. We need to tell them that we're going to inform the neighborhood that we're selling. Make sure they understand that people in the neighborhood may know someone who's interested in viewing your home, and we need to access those people. It's a good thing to generate an excitement about your home being sold, having it on the market. You know, that's news. People want to know about that. Gives us an opportunity for us to get fast feedback on price and home features and any concerns. The quickest way to get feedback on a home is to have an open house. If you can get, half a dozen or a dozen qualified or interested buyers through that home, and you can get some feedback from them, be very, very helpful to know if we're on the right price. Particularly when we've got realtors coming through and we say, hey, thanks for coming, bringing your clients to our home. Talk to me about how you felt the home is priced, and were there any concerns you had? And another realtor may say, it's a good price. Or a realtor may say, I thought the price was a bit high compared to other homes I've been looking at in sort of this similar, size or neighborhood. And that's important for us to know.
I think.
Any thoughts on any of those? Yes.
Yeah, obviously we're in a very different market to what we were a couple of years ago, and all homes will sell at the moment, right? Because there is a demand, but we can still use it as an opportunity that we don't necessarily need feedback because it's going to sell, but by doing certain things and making your home good, you're going to get more money than if you don't. So it goes back to top dollar, getting more for your home.
Yeah. And feedback from people is very important to us because this is a business transaction. We're trying to sell a property for several $100,000. And if we can know what's working and what isn't working, that's going to help us get top dollar. Very good. Here's another important thing. When we're talking to the seller, let's make sure they understand how long this is going to be for, when they need to have left the property, and when they can expect to return to the property. And I'd encourage you to be keen on your timing. If you say we're going to have this at 10 o'clock, then be there early so you can start it at 10 o'clock. And if you're going to be finishing at midday, then aim to finish at midday. If it goes over, it's going to go over a little bit. You can always call or text the seller and say, hey, we've got a real interested buyer in at the moment. I think we'll be another 30 minutes or whatever. But I think it's important that the seller knows what time they have to be out of the house so they can plan for that. Particularly if they've got, children or animals or other things they've got to attend to. Let's look at some other items here. We should talk to the seller about expectations. Some of our sellers think, oh yeah, you'll do the open house and then we'll get an offer in. Well, maybe you won't. And I have had an offer in on an open house, but most of them I don't get an offer in on the open house. So let's make sure that our seller understands that we could get an offer in, but often you don't get a buyer on the open house. But it will help us to know and gauge where we are in our pricing and our presentation of the home. This is important. Remind your seller not to leave any valuables around or any cash. We had one client after the open house called me up the next day and said, Steve, my ring has been stolen at the open house. I said, are you sure? He says, yeah. I said, well, where was it? It was on a bedside table. I said, so you left the ring on the bedside table? Yeah. And it's stolen. So who's going to pay for it? Whoops, what happened there? Getting more information. What's all that about? Let's see if we can get, I've lost my screen. Where's that gone? Okay, guys. Let me just get my, I don't know what you can see, but I can't see anything here. Let's get rid of that.
It's all white for us.
It's all right. Let me see.
There you go.
Is it back in? We're back in. Don't know what happened there. Anyway, so my heart's beating like a big brass band. I'm thinking, what am I going to do with this girl? Because she lost her ring, her gold ring. So I said, okay. I said, well, the first thing is just, can you check everywhere and make sure it's, you know, not somewhere else? Because I haven't got it and I haven't seen it. You say you left it on your bedside bed, your bedside cabinet, and it's gone. I didn't know what to do actually, because she was pretty wound up about this ring. You can remember, can't you, Leslie Ann? Yeah. Anyway, she calls me up in a few hours' time. I found it, she says. I didn't leave it there. It was in my wherever it was. And I'm thinking, goodness me. I had no idea what I was going to do because we were early in the game, but make sure you have that conversation with your seller. If they've got any valuable stuff, just take it with them or lock it up, but don't leave it around. Very important that. Let's see how we got this thing going. What's going on with my stuff here? Here we go. We're back in. Okay, here we go. Pets. Remove the pets and evidence of the pets if possible. I'm talking remove the dog bowl and the cat litter tray. If you can do all that, that's going to help you. People don't often want to see the dog barking or the cat wandering around. Can put them off. Have your seller share with you any repairs that they're planning on doing. That's really important because you can share that with potential buyers. And as Leslie mentioned earlier, remind your seller that you're preparing to sell the house. You're not necessarily doing it to live in, but we've got to get it as best as we can, looking like a show house. So there are some thoughts on the seller, preparing the seller. Let's wander through some of these. Forms and paperwork. So you'll probably need a signing form. I'd suggest you get a form that's got just simple stuff on there. Name, phone. Obviously, if they're with a realtor, you want the realtor connections. If they're unrepresented, you want their contact details and see if you can get their email as well. You'll obviously have the MLS specification sheets so you can hand out. If you've used flyers for the home, have those there as well so you can take flyers home with them. Maybe you might have lender information sheets. That might be a good thing to work with as well. I would encourage you to keep whatever forms or paperwork you have simple. Make it simple, make it easy to read, easy to work. If you have it complicated, it's just not going to happen. It's got to be real simple. Any thoughts on forms and paperwork? Okay, keep it simple. Simple. Setting up. Basically, I've looked at these 5 areas for the setup. You've obviously got whatever you're going to do outside. Some people use these flags. Balloons is probably the cheapest way of doing it. Just something to create awareness. If you've got your directional signs, make sure you've got enough of those so you're bringing people in that are just traveling around on that day looking for properties. And I found if you do like a Saturday morning, you've got a good chance of piggybacking other people's or other realtors' open house signs. Sometimes there'll be a few properties in a similar area, and you can piggyback some of those signs. So you won't have to put so many of them out. You can have some out with other realtors, and as they're coming in closer to the neighborhood you're in, then you could increase the amount of directional signs you would have. But make sure you've got enough directional signs. And I've always put the property name on the sign rather than have it completely open, because then at least people know which property we're talking about. And also when you come to pick up the sign, you know which sign you've put out, which is your sign.
You mean you put the address on?
Yeah, the address of the property. Yes, thank you. Yeah, put the address of the property on there. Balloons are easy and cheap to use. Whether you're using flags or balloons, you could do with something there so that when they're driving down the road, they can quickly see where the property is. And maybe you use a open house welcome sign on the front there. And I've often put also a sort of a printed little poster on the door that says, welcome, come along in. And then maybe on there you may have just inside a little note on, if you want them to take the shoes off, or in this modern world, maybe someone you put gloves on or masks or whatever. So a welcome mat's good. They're pretty cheap to buy, but to have a nice welcome mat on the front door can also be very inviting. Anybody use any other platforms just for outside getting people in on physical signage? I think I covered most of the items there.
I've got a couple of recommendations, Stephen.
Yes,
Tyler again. Directional signs. The first time I ever put out an open house, I think I had like 4 signs. Not surprisingly, I didn't get very good traffic. The most recent open house I had, I think I put out 22 signs or something like that. We have phenomenal traffic. So when you're looking at how many open house signs to use more than you think. Put them at every major intersection, at least up to half a mile or mile away. And then also one thing for welcome mats, I went to my lender and I said, hey, how would you like to be in every open house that I host? And they said, yeah, I'd love that. And I said, if you make some mats, you can have your name in front of the buyers in every single one of my open houses. I need one for the front outside. I need one for the front inside. I want one in the kitchen and one in the garage. So a week later, I had a ton of mats from my lender. Didn't pay a dime.
Wow, that's a great idea. Thanks for sharing, Tyler. Great idea. Another thing, just on your directional signs, just be careful what the city rules are. Ideally, you want to put those signs out either the morning of the day and then take them down as soon as you're finished. Some of the city rules can be quite rigid on these directional signs if they're left out too early or too late after the event. So I'll just share that with you.
Or if at all. My first open house like 15 years ago in Alpine, I put out all sorts of directionals everywhere. They took all of them down. Like every single one was taken down.
Wow. Yeah, it can happen. So thanks for sharing that, Brandon. Just be careful. Just know what you do. I think generally speaking, they're okay if they're a couple of hours before, and not long after. But if you put them up like 2 days before, you might have the Brandon experience and find it all being taken down. Literature. Just a little splash here of things you can think about. Obviously, handouts, flyers, your business cards, obviously your forms. And then for those of you that have done drone footage or a 3D tour, if you had your laptop there or your iPad, you could have that running and people could see that. Sometimes people that are moving in from an area that they're not familiar with, moving to an area they're not familiar with, it's good for them to see what the houses look like from a drone footage or to look through the rooms, you know, in a 3D tour. We've always done this since they've been available. We found it very successful. In fact, it reduces some of the, I guess we call them the waste of timers, because if they can see the drone footage and the 3D tour before they come to the house, they're much more interested if they've already seen the house in 3D. But in an open house, you can have that running, can't you? Yes, Leslie.
I also think that's a great thing in the days of COVID, that if people are nervous, whether it's your client, the seller, or a buyer, if a property has drone footage and the 3D imaging, so they literally can walk through the house, that will give them a good enough idea as to whether they want to make the effort and to make the precautions to go and look at it in person. Because often people look at homes and they kind of think, let's go look at it, we're not sure, but that should weed out those people.
Yeah, very good. So having something there available in an open house is good. You know, having all your physical printed items, and then, you know, if you did have a computer there, a laptop or iPad or something with some drone footage and a 3D tour, that can also engage them. You know, it can make them feel excited about the property. Let's look at some interior platforms that we need to be thinking about. I would always suggest you use professional photography. Sometimes I look at the MLS and I see photography that's done by a little iPhone, and I'm thinking, you know, they're trying to sell a $500,000 building here with, you know, these photos that look like, you know, the grandkids have took them. Or maybe the grandkids could do a better job, actually. But I would suggest just get some professional photography done. And what Leslie and I do, we've always said to our seller, look, we're going to use professional photography. We do drone footage, we do the 3D, and then we do very good photography. And we are going to pay that. You know, that's not going to cost you anything. Obviously, if they decide to pull out of the deal, we'd say, you know, you'd have to put the bill on that. But that's going to come out of our commission. And we found by doing that, we've always been able to produce high quality photographic images, which is most helpful when trying to sell a property. So just go through some points here. You've got to make your rooms look big. Obviously, make sure during that open house, all of the lights are turned on. Got to make sure that your I guess your drapes are open and your blinds are open. Get as much light in there as possible. Think about ceiling fans. Obviously, in the summer, you want your ceiling fans on. You may not need them on in the winter, depending on whether the room needs a circulation of air. You'll put those ceiling fans. You don't want the house to be cold, but certainly in the summer, you put those ceiling fans on. But also think about the ceiling fans. Make sure they're not making a lot of noise, because if you've got a fan that's clinking all the time, you need to have that repaired before you have your open house. You know, sometimes we don't think about that. We get into our open house, put the fans on, it's hot in here, and the fan's going clink, 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 clink. And you'll think, oh my goodness, I wish I got that fixed before I had the open house, because now I can't switch it on because I'm too hot. So I can't switch it off because I'm too hot. I've got to have it on because, you know, they keep me cool. Any other thoughts on those three items?
Steve, are we missing a keyword? We've only had one.
I don't think so. It probably come up soon. Maybe it's in one of these. We've only had one so far.
Okay, great.
But good point. But Merlin should pop up at any moment. Here's another one. Make sure you have all your doors to rooms open. So here's a room. You can see the doors open to the restroom right at the back there. So make sure that all of your rooms are open with the lights on, so people are drawn into those rooms. And also make sure that you have keys to any outbuildings or rooms in the home that are generally locked. Make note of any non-visible rooms. We had a client who he said to me, he says, oh, do you want to see my gun room? I says, okay. I come from England, so I don't have any gun rooms, but I'll see your gun room. So he takes me into this one, I think it might have been a bedroom. Anyway, it was a room. And I'm thinking, well, where are the guns? And then he takes a picture off the wall, and he does a click, and then this wall turns into a door. And behind there's this big gun room. But wow, he got his lights in there and all his equipment. He said, how are we going to show this? I said, well, we better remove the guns to start off with. But nobody would have known that room was there. Nobody would have known.
Were you selling for James Bond?
Yeah, that's what it was. It just felt like being James Bond. I couldn't believe it. But it was a great selling feature. I mean, someone that was into guns would have loved it. And it was all decked out. I mean, he got the big lights. Sorry? Who said that?
I said sold.
Yes, that's right.
I used to live
sold on it.
I'm from Utah, but I used to live in Texas for a while. And I know a lot of different places that look like that.
Yeah, I'd never seen one before, so it was a whole new experience for me. But when I walked in,
in England,
room,
not even the police are armed. So very, very few people own guns, except for maybe criminals, or the very wealthy who do duck hunting on their land. But other than that, people, yeah. So whole new ball game for us.
So check this one out. I was in a property 2 weeks ago that had a full-on panic room. It was a hidden panic room, but it was also a fallout shelter for nuclear radiation.
Wow.
And I was really surprised that they let us in there, because my client spent more time looking at all the food storage that they had than the house. But it is important, and I know Tyler Kazir does this on his open houses. He's told me that they'll go and they put some nice gold embellishments or some kind of a sign on every single area. And I think for the open houses, that works out really well, because it gets people looking past, oh, that's what that is. Great, that's what that is. And then they can quickly move through, especially if you have a lot of people going through.
Yeah, we call those point of interest signs, and they work really well, because it allows you to point out special things about the house that maybe people wouldn't observe. And it also makes information easily accessible. One of the things I always put up, it seems kind of weird, but one of the things I always put up is the manufacturer date on the water heater and the last time the AC furnace was checked. Because every realtor I've ever seen go through a house goes into the mechanical room and looks for those pieces of information, and they're down there looking underneath their water heater like, where the heck is it? I just put it up on top, and I'm like, hey, this is when it was manufactured. Here's the last service date for the HVAC.
Great idea. Great suggestions there, guys. Great suggestions. Thanks for sharing. So just make sure you know all these bits and pieces, because then you can actually share them. And, if you can print them on a little sheet like that, that'd be great. Okay, what else have we got on interior? So here's another thought. We found this successful. If you set up a dining table, usually looks pretty enticing. It can look attractive, as long as it's simply done, and people can, feel like, yeah, I could live here. Really important. Make sure your kitchen is absolutely spanking clean. It's got to be spotless. Particularly, the ladies that walk in the kitchen. The gents are usually interested in the garage, but the ladies, they're going to spend a lot of time in this kitchen. It's got to be clean. And if your seller can't do much cleaning, the one place they've got to work on is the kitchen. It's got to be clean. Any thoughts on that? Okay, let's keep rolling through some of these interior pieces. Moving to the bedroom, and this is one that can carry a lot of grime and dirt, particularly in tiles and in seals around the bath.
I think you mean bathroom. You said bedroom.
Sorry, bathroom. Yes, I've got a bedroom one down here actually. Yes, the bathroom. Make sure the bathroom's absolutely clean, free of grime and dirt, because that can just look very untasteful. And the bedrooms, they need to be completely free of clutter. So when you're doing these open houses, make sure we can keep all the lights on, make them big, make them look good. Here's another thought, gifts. When I say gifts, I'm talking about, I don't know, maybe you got some candy there, or you might have, you know, some cookies. I know with the COVID, often the food is a problem, but if it's wrapped food like candies or water, then that can be attractive to you know, some of our visitors. Or if you've got pens with your, you know, your company name on, that can be another thing that can be a good thing to work with. Here's a splash. Leslie Ann actually did make those cookies. They're not actually bought, so she did actually make the bread. Looks pretty good, doesn't it, eh? And the cookies. I think it's good to have some things, some giveaway things, whatever they may be, because that can often be a good way of breaking the ice. If someone comes into a home and they are maybe a little shy, you say, hey, would you like a, you know, a bottle of water, a cookie, or, you know, some candy? They've got kids, they always like the candies. So having something to give away, like a little gift they can walk away with, we found to be a reasonably successful thing to do. Has anybody else had success on having a few small gifts available in an open house?
I do it more for brokers opens where I'm not inviting the public in some of the higher priced homes, where I'll offer, you know, $500 worth of gift cards or a, you know, an Apple Watch or something like that. But in other open houses, I know that because nobody that wants to leave their information because they know you're going to call them. So
Right.
I'll have a drawing for, you know, 4 $25 gift cards. And it's only going to be good for those people that put their information down. And that could be an agent, that could be a person, doesn't matter. We'll still give it out. But, you know, $100 doesn't cost much for a bunch of potential clients going forward.
Very good. Yeah, people who like gifts, they like giveaways. So if there's something free in it for them, that can attract some traction for you. Okay, let's look at.
I have a quick comment, but
yeah,
with like food and drink, use that, especially with COVID now. Get a pre-packaged cookie, you know, and put your sticker or business card stapled on there. That's another way for somebody to leave with your information as well. So just another way to advertise yourself.
You might as well. People are coming in and they're going to see how well you got this home prepared. So if they can take you with them, your details, then maybe they'll call you. Here's some thoughts on information technology. I suggest you have your laptop there, or your iPad, or your phone, or some sort of electronic device, because sometimes you'll need to show them things on that, like your virtual tour or whatever. And if you've got a place that's got like a theatre, we've had it where they've had a film rolling, you know, just a film rolling in the theatre, so that people can, you know, get a feel of how that feels, and maybe some background music playing around the house or whatever. So that they're things you can work with on IT. Anybody got any experience or thoughts on using IT? Okay. You know what, Leslie, and I think that that keyword came up earlier when I lost connection, because I think it should have been
I think is it Araceli said that, had she missed one, and I'm like, no, but maybe you're right, so you better give it us.
Maybe we did. So we'll just go a little bit further and we'll see if one comes up. We'll go through the presentation section, and if not, I shall give you another one. So remember, this is your exhibition. This is your house display. This is it. This is presenting the home to the visitors, and you're going to do it the best way you can. You're going to welcome them in, highlight the features. Maybe you could have a lender table for pre-approval. Some people have done that. That's been quite successful. Oh, there he is. Mr. Merlin's up. So we'll call this one presentation. That'll be your second keyword. presentation, 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 that's keyword number 2. I know there is another keyword, so this was just a late one coming in. Presentation is keyword number 2. Okay, so we'll run through these fairly quickly. These are pretty simple stuff. Right, the visitor respect whatever the sellers have requested for entering the home. So some sellers, particularly with this COVID platform, have got some fairly rigid requests. You know, whether it's sometimes putting gloves on or feet covering, mask, or whatever it may be. So let's respect whatever the sellers have requested for entering the home. Invite them to have a cookie or a drink or whatever we've got there. Invite them to sign in. And if they're reluctant on this, I usually say, you know, we have an obligation to our seller to let them know who's walked their home. And that's important because, you know, if someone did go adrift, we can at least contact people. Keep an eye on where people go in the home. Sometimes it can be very difficult to keep an eye on everybody. So if you've got a lot of people coming in, you might need a helper to be with you on that. Great time to use your skills on the DISC personality styles. We talked about those last week, but you can have a lot of fun figuring out where people are in the DISC personality when you're showing a home in an open house. Highlight the features, and you know, features could be various things in the home. I'm just going to put out a few outside features here. You know, you might be sharing the fire pit or the flagstone. You might be talking about, you know, sometimes you've got expensive rock work, you can share that, or maybe there's a water feature, some nice curbing around it, or maybe there's a fruit orchard. And if you've got a fruit orchard there, maybe you've got samples of the fruit you can show, you know, on your laptop or your iPad. But to give people an idea of what this home looks like with its different features is a good thing. And outside you can do a lot with if you've got some really good features outside. Showing the property in different times of the day can also have a huge impact on the buyer. Maybe you might want to show some photographs or pictures or images of the house, you know, lit up at night time, and you can put that on your laptop or your iPad or whatever, or even on your iPhone. That gives people an idea of what their property looks like. Maybe you might do some shots or scenes of the views, in this case mountains or the city. These are all things you can add in to an open house platform that maybe you can't do on a general showing, but because you're there, you can have something rolling that will show the house in different settings, if that makes sense. Let me just go back to that last one. Did anybody have any thoughts on that slide before I move on to the cleanup, or any thoughts on highlighting features? Has anybody done things like this or any other things I've missed? Okay. Cleanup. This is pretty important. Obviously, make sure you've got all your details from any information on leads. That's important. You could have a lot of traffic that's walked through that house, and you know, things could have been moved around, or you know, litter dropped, or we've got to make sure we give it back to the seller that the house really looks like it did when they left. We don't want to be giving their house back looking a mess. So that's an important thing on your cleanup. It can sometimes be forgotten because we're in a rush to get going to our next place. Make sure all your doors and your windows are locked and that your house is secure. That's important because the seller doesn't want to come back and find that you know, things are left open. It will reduce their confidence in you as a realtor. Obviously, remove all your directional signs out there. That's pretty important. And then call your seller, tell them that you've finished, and you know you're ready for them to come back. Make sure he or she's happy, and that the house is back in the same condition that it was when she left, or he left, or they left. Any other thoughts on the cleanup there that anybody would like to add to or comment on? Okay. All right. Okay, obviously tell the seller how it went. You're not going to give them a big report, but you may say something like, you know, we had about 7 or 8 families come in. There are 2 or 3 of them that were very interested in your home. I don't have any offers on yet, but I will follow up on everybody and I'll let you know how that goes. But we look like we've got a couple of people that, you know, are considering an offer. The seller likes to know a little bit about what's gone on, give them confidence. And if you've had very little turnout, you may say something like, you know, we only had a couple of people come in, but the house looked great, and they did comment on how well the house was presented. It didn't actually meet their needs because they were looking for something maybe a little smaller or a little larger or a bit more land, but they really liked your home. You can still give your seller a positive response, even if you've only had 1 or 2 people attend, because your seller will want to know how the open house went, even though they may not have got any strong interest. They want to know that the work they put into making that house as a show house was well received, and at least the seller now knows how to produce the home into a place where it can be shown, because we're going to be asking them to get that home or keep the home in that state as we have other people come in for showings. Any comments on the clear up? Okay, so follow up. Oh, here we go. He's back again. There were 2 late keywords this time, and this keyword will be follow up. FOLLOW, up. Follow up will be the 3rd keyword on this class as we wrap this thing up. Follow up is the 3rd keyword. So follow up. Obviously reach out to the agents that brought in buyers and get feedback. Now, there are some things we can ask an agent on an open house that can help us tremendously, because we've just hopefully just put this house on the market. So we obviously ask them about price. We can obviously ask them about the condition of the home. We can ask them how their buyers felt about the home. We can also ask the agent, is there anything that you saw in the home that we could improve on? Or was there anything in the home that you thought we need to know about that, you know, that was not highlighted? And usually agents are pretty good at giving you honest feedback. So I would suggest that, you know, when you make that call to your agent, obviously thank them very much for bringing their buyers through, but get some good solid feedback. And when you've met with your seller before the open house, you can tell the seller that I will give you honest feedback from every lead that comes through the home. Now, those that are who are unrepresented buyers, obviously we're interested to see if they like the home. And if they didn't, it's a great opportunity for us to say, hey, could we help you find another home? And you know, we have resources. You obviously know other agents. We have resources. We can get you maybe on a hot sheet from the MLS, so you can see the homes that are coming on the market as soon as they come on the market, and we can get you in there. So it's a great opportunity to find a lead, contacting them. I'd encourage you to call your seller that day. Make these calls that day if you can. Get back to your seller as soon as possible. So, you know, Saturday evening, your seller has like a full report, or as much of a report that you can give them on the success of your open house. Any thoughts or comments on that slide? Anybody here had any stories where they've called an agent and the agent has said, you know, the house was fine. Buyers were not interested, but I did notice something as I was walking around the home that I probably should alert you to. Has anybody had that happen from an agent? No? Okay, well, sometimes that will happen. And sometimes an agent's got a keen eye and they can pick up something that maybe you may have missed. No other thoughts? Okay. All right then. So we've covered quite a few things today. Just as we wrap up this in the next few minutes, I'd like to know if anybody learned anything new today that I didn't know before. I learned something new, but I'll tell you that when you tell me yours. Has anybody here learned something new today that they didn't know before?
Well, since I'm a talker, apparently I'll go.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you.
And you know, it's actually from other people's feedback, like the ozone machine that Brandon mentioned.
Yeah, that's what I learned.
Having the drone footage that you mentioned playing on a laptop, I like that. And then point of interest signs that Tyler was talking about. So
yeah, very, very good. Yes, I'd not known that either. Good. Thank you for sharing, Lacey. And anybody else found something particular that they've learned today that they didn't know before?
I like Tyler's idea of putting the dates of when the HVAC and the AC, or having that information available as to when it was manufactured and when it was last serviced, because that is something that always comes up, either from the agent or in the inspection report. And sometimes they'll ask for it to be serviced because they assume it hasn't been recently. But if you can say it was serviced in the last so many months, or even that they may not even think, oh, okay, that's great, and they won't even go there.
Perfect. Yeah, I thought that was a really good idea to make it clear as well so they can see it, because that also shows the buyer or the prospective buyer or the onlooker that you've taken pride in the home and you've looked after it and you know those dates. Very good. Any other thoughts on something you found this morning you didn't know previously, or it's reinforced something that you'd like to work on?
Well, I think all that information also tells people, potential buyers, that you're totally transparent, or the seller is, and you're not hiding anything. You want to give them as much information as you can about the house.
Very good. Thank you. Any more comments for anybody else? Okay, so we'll wrap up this session. Surely appreciate you joining us today. We've gone through in quite a lot of detail the open house. I suggest that we try and implement something new, raise the bar. Wherever your bar is in this industry, just nudge it up a little bit, and we can learn a lot from each other. So Leslie Ann will need, in fact, may I just ask Leslie Ann to go through what she needs? I've got some notes here on the screen.
Yeah, so I just put in a URL to the form that you'll need to fill in. If you, I think last week, I actually sent a link to our classes. So this is a form. You will see that it asks questions. I think the main thing is Steve copies and pastes this information into the website to get you credit. So put in your license number and then the dash and then the SA and the 00. Please put that in capitals, the SA and the 00. Make sure you put 00 instead of 00, because numerous times he'll get several that don't register because it's incorrect, or he has to go and search to see if you're a sales agent or a principal broker. So if you can just follow the instructions on that form, it's very helpful, and he's able to input the information to give you credit.
When are you putting the link in the chat?
I just,
Mm-mm.
oh, hang on a moment. No, you know what it is? It's because someone, yeah, okay, I need to remember.
When you're
Yeah.
chatting with somebody else, did you do that again?
It was Tanya had made I did, that's so weird how I did it to Tanya, because I don't even think I have messaged her, or even if she said something, but oh yes, she did. Anyway, there you do, you all see it now?
Mhm. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of it's an unusual system working with the division, because you don't actually bank them with the division, you bank them with a different company, which is called Pearson View, and then when it goes to that company, it then banks with the division. And I found that even though some of the license numbers are exactly correct, they don't get banked, and so then I have to call them, and because I'm working blind, I only have what you give me. It sometimes takes a phone call to get them through. So if you can get all of the numbers in the right order, no spaces, you do need the dash, and then you do need the 2 letters and the 00. That will certainly help, because I put them all in individually. That's why I copy and paste them so they're exactly right. Very good. Well, she'll see you all next week. Thanks for being on this lesson today, this class. I hope you enjoyed it, and I wish you a very fun week. Thank you all.
I'll just stay on for a few minutes so I make sure that you all are able to click on that link. If for some reason you miss it, you can reach out to me via phone, or if you have any questions about today's class, there's my number.